Our host, Dean of the Faculty of Humanities and Education, Professor Sylvia Kornberg, officers of the University of the West Indies, Pro-Vice Chancellor and Campus Principal, Professor Dale Weber, Pro-Vice Chancellor of the Office of the Board for Undergraduate Studies, Professor C. Justin Robinson, joining us from the Cavell campus virtually, Deputy Principal, Professor Ian Boxell, His Excellency, the High Commissioner of India to Jamaica, joining us virtually, Dean Shahsida Ali, Dean of the Faculty of Law, also joining us virtually, our esteemed and featured speaker today, a newly minted professor, Professor Lawrence Bamikole, Professor of Value Philosophy, our campus librarian, Dr. Paulette Carr, and Estate Manager, Dr. Devon Smith, our heads of departments, institutes, and colleges, especially Dr. Vivette Milson White, head of the Department of Language, Linguistics, and Philosophy, family and friends of Professor Bamikole, members of the Language, Linguistics, Philosophy community, and other specially invited guests, and everyone joining us online today. Welcome to you all. It is indeed an honor to welcome you all to the Faculty of Humanities and Education at the Mona Jamaica campus of the University of the West Indies, and to this professorial inaugural lecture for Professor Lawrence Bamikole on Value Philosophy. I am Dr. Stanley Griffin, the Deputy Dean for Undergraduate Matters in the Humanities, and it is my privilege to chair the proceedings this afternoon. The 1972 Charter of our university outlines a twofold purpose for our gathering today. I quote, "The university is to provide a place of education, learning, and research of a standard required and expected of a university of the highest standard, and to secure the advancement of knowledge and the diffusion and extension of arts, sciences, learning throughout the contributing territories. Secondly, to institute professorships, readerships, lectureships, and other such academic or administrative offices required by the university, and to appoint such offices." End of quote. Today's inaugural professorial lecture marks the continuation of our fundamental role and established tradition as a university to provide spaces for education, learning, and research of the highest quality, for the sharing of this knowledge to our community at large, and to appoint professors to secure the advancement of knowledge and its diffusion. It is therefore no coincidence that we gather then in our faculty's largest lecture theatre, both in person and online, to share in and experience the wealth of knowledge that has elevated Dr. Bamikole to the highest academic rank of our university, Professor Bamikole. Professor, we are here to celebrate your work and to learn from you. Your applause came a bit too early. Pro-Vice Chancellors, Your Excellencies, Deans, Professors, ladies and gentlemen, it is not too early in our gathering to applaud the achievements and excellence of our professor, which has exemplified over the years. Please greet again Professor Bamikole. Thank you very much. We also want to recognize especially and welcome members of the professor's family who are here with us today. We thank you all for allowing us to benefit from the professor's quest for knowledge and for the support you undoubtedly provided him over the years. An inaugural professorial lecture represents a significant milestone in an academic's career. Celebrating their promotion to the rank of professor or their appointment to a chair or other professorship at the university is indeed noteworthy. For the faculty where the professors are based, this event is a chance to stop and recognize their achievement by bringing together staff, students, and community to celebrate, to be enlightened, and to be inspired in our collective academic mandates and pursuits. Today's gathering is also an opportunity to engage with and broaden our reach inside and outside the university, to foster new conversations, and to strengthen existing relationships, and to catch up with each other. We saw that happening earlier on this afternoon. For this reason, we are particularly pleased to welcome all those who are joining us virtually And we trust this afternoon's professorial lecture will deepen your interest in the disciplines of our Faculty of Humanities and Education, and consider joining us for pursuing your academic ambitions. Finally, an inaugural professorial lecture centers research as a key defining contribution of the academic to the university and community at large. It provides a platform to share the research interests and findings that defines the professor's work. It celebrates the steady development of research and practice over the years, and it recognizes the wealth of published materials that the professor has generated. We are therefore looking forward to hear and reflect on Professor Bamikole's inaugural professorial lecture on value philosophy. Thank you for gracing us with your presence as we mark this milestone with Professor Bamikole. I now invite the Dean of our faculty, Professor Sylvia Cohenberg, to bring opening remarks. Please welcome Professor Cohenberg.
Good afternoon, all. I know that all protocols have been observed. So let me just say what a pleasure it is to have a live audience here, even though it's a sparse one. Under different circumstances, I would have said, come forward, everyone. And now I have to say, please move up the, yes. Of course, with the inclusion of an online audience, we have come to realize that these events are now actually followed by a lot more persons than if we were just here face to face. So in a way, what we are doing today is setting a new standard for these events, the combination of a small select number of live participants and then a much larger and hopefully very diverse set of participants online. In a way, what we have today is the best of both worlds. And hopefully, this is how we're going to be able to continue. What does it mean for us, Faculty of Humanities and Education, to have this event today? It is an opportunity for us to recognize in public the elevation of one of our own to the rank of professor. Such occasions do not arise very often. Actually, I was trying to remember when was our last inaugural lecture. Was it Matthew Smith? Was it? She was, yes, she was more recent. Okay, so those were our last inaugural lectures. That is already a couple of years ago, still in living memory, but okay, so it's an opportunity for us to recognize the elevation of one of our own to the rank of professor. It's also an opportunity for us to engage with our colleagues across departments and faculties, because typically these events, we find that colleagues participate from different faculties that would not normally come to our particular faculty events. Of course, for the esteemed colleague who is delivering the inaugural lecture, it's an occasion to address the broader community and share their passion for their field of study. And typically, these inaugural lectures are given in a way that makes the field of study accessible to a broad audience. So we can hope and look forward to coming away from this lecture with our own personal understanding of the field that our colleague here pursues in his research. So in this manner, the work is introduced to the greater community. An inaugural lecture, then, is a high point, both for the institution, for the faculty, and for the colleague whose work is in the limelight, and that colleague today is Professor Lawrence Ojo Bamikole. So what to expect of today's auspicious occasion? Well, the lecture's title doesn't give away anything, does it? Value philosophy, okay. It reveals nothing beyond the fact that a particular field of specialization within philosophy is named. But knowing a little bit of Professor Bamikole's interest, I would venture that we're not only going to learn about value philosophy, but we're going to learn especially about how its principal tenets can be applied to problems in and of the society. Also, knowing a little bit about Professor Bamikole, I would venture to say that we're going to see how this application is relevant both to West African situations and Jamaican or Caribbean situations. In other words, we're going to bridge the old world and the new. Now, before I leave this platform, I want to say a little bit about Professor Bamikole himself. A colleague, probably present online, likes to refer to him as a true gentleman. And I think that characterization fits him really well. We have all come to know him as a colleague who is soft-spoken, ready to listen to others, and eager to debate, but to do so with carefully worded and respectful arguments. A true gentleman. He has also willingly served this institution. He has done so for many years as coordinator of the philosophy section, then as the head of the Department of Language, Linguistics and Philosophy, and currently he willingly took on the chair of the faculty's ethics committee. His demeanor in the service of this institution, once again, is that of a true gentleman. So with this event, we recognize a milestone in the academic career of a well-regarded, highly valued colleague and scholar. And really, the only regret coming with this pandemic is that his wife is not here. It would have been lovely to see her here today. But she is following us back home, right? Yes, there you go. On behalf of the faculty of Humanities and Education, I thank Professor Bamikole for having afforded us this opportunity to honor him. And I thank you, our audience, both live and online, for being here to mark this wonderful occasion. And I invite you all to listen, to learn, to enjoy.
Thank you, Dean. And now, when Professor Bamikole is a member of the Department of Language, Linguistics and Philosophy, it is therefore fitting to have colleagues share in this afternoon's assembly. I now invite the head of the department, Dr. Vivett Milson White, to bring greetings.
Ladies and gentlemen, the chair, Dr. Stanley Griffin, has established the protocol in recognizing all of our guests. So with your kind permission, I am embracing it. On behalf of my department, the Department of Language, Linguistics and Philosophy, here on the Mona campus of the University of the West Indies, I join Dean Kuenberg in welcoming all of you on this special occasion when we pause to celebrate Lawrence Bamikole's promotion to the rank of professor and hear him profess publicly. We are delighted that in addition to all of our specially invited guests are Professor Bamikole's colleagues, students, and well-wishers who have joined virtually. And I extend a very special welcome to Professor Bamikole's life partner, Cristiano, his children Taiwo, Keinde, Bayo, and Femi, and other relatives, most of whom are joining us virtually from Nigeria. Guests all, I extend that special welcome to Professor Bamikole's family members who have supported and enabled his development to this day, his having started his rise through the academic ranks at what is known today as Ekiti State University on the African continent to stand today at the pinnacle of academia as Professor of Value Philosophy at the University of the West Indies, seas away from his homeland. Professor Bamikole joined our department in 2002 as a sabbatical replacement for his esteemed colleague, Professor John Biwaji, and served with us in the capacity of lecturer until 2007. Personal reasons compelled Professor Bamikole's return to Nigeria in 2007. However, he returned on appointment as senior lecturer in December 2010 and has been with us since then. In these years, he has remained an academic leader, supportive mentor, and favored teacher in the department. First, while serving with us, he has continued his research in all of the branches of philosophy, making original contributions to the discipline broadly and specifically in the area of value philosophy, inclusive of ethics, aesthetics, and social and political philosophy at academic conferences and in publications annually. Indeed, Principal Weber, Professor Bamikole has been achieving the institution's suggested number of publications annually. Professor Bamikole has mastered the art and demonstrated for junior academics the possibility of translating conference presentations into publications through doing careful research and judiciously using feedback colleagues provide on his oral presentations. Ladies and gentlemen, nearly all of Professor Bamikole's presentations have been published. Second, being an academic leader, he has also engaged in collaborative research, presentations, and publications while mentoring young aspiring academics, including, and I'll name some, Roxanne Burton, Sandra McCullough, Nikisha Dawkins, Kimaha Connell, and Marissa Forbes, who have completed or are currently pursuing doctoral degrees, not just in philosophy, but also in linguistics. Professor Bamikole has represented the department in various ways and served as philosophy section coordinator on a few one-year stints, as you heard from Dean Quenberg, and as head of department from August 2014 to July 2017. During his tenure as head, and given his skills and experience and calling on his Christian faith, he promoted cohesion in our multidisciplinary, multifaceted department and worked on increasing student numbers and improving the experience of graduate students. He initiated in 2015 a staff research day and ensured the papers presented at the event were peer-reviewed and published in a volume of the Caribbean Journal of Education. Having enhanced the quality of the department's graduate programs, he, along with graduate teachers and supervisors, was awarded with an award of excellence from the Office of Graduate Studies and Research in 2016. Third, with regard to teaching, Professor Bamikole has taught faithfully in courses he encountered in the department on his arrival in Jamaica, as well as those he and his colleagues in philosophy introduced. He was careful to complete a certificate of excellence in teaching and learning on this campus and to infuse his teaching with the approaches and strategies garnered from that program. Ladies and gentlemen, you will probably not be surprised that he has been favored by his students who have rated his teaching consistently at 4.3 and above out of 5. Indeed, Professor Bamikole has graciously shared his knowledge with graduate and undergraduate students, and his leadership in teaching has been significant in an era when the department and institutions strive to maintain quality teaching and learning for all students. I'll now share with you words from a few members of the department. From Mrs. Yvette Mundi White, an administrative secretary. My encounter with Professor Bamikole as HOD was a memorable one. He was sociable, demonstrated humility. He was a confidant, tactful, and embraced positive attitudes and gave everyone the benefit of the doubt. I will be forever grateful for his leadership. From Ms. Ava Mundell, the Senior Administrative Assistant, it was our pleasure working with Professor Bamikole as HOD. He was understanding and caring as a boss. The staff felt comfortable talking to him about personal matters because he was not judgmental. He would always give sound advice. We enjoyed going to work when he was HOD. From Ms. Tika Shimhu, Administrative Assistant, I wonder what happened under Dr. McLaren's headship. I had the opportunity of working with Professor Bamikole as HOD for about a year, but he was my academic supervisor for both my undergraduate and graduate degrees. During these engagements, I found him to be very pleasant, humble, selfless, and a caring boss and academic supervisor. I enjoyed working with him as part of a team, as he always encouraged us to remain cognizant of the fact that we belong to one department and not to individual sections. It was my pleasure showing up for work, knowing that the team had a great leader. And then from the present philosophy section coordinator, Dr. Rotimi Omoshulu. Professor Lawrence Bamikole is not only an academic giant with a great track record, but he is also an embodiment of humility in all its ramifications. He exemplifies benevolence while providing academic leadership to colleagues and mentees at the University of the West Indies and beyond. My over 2 years of amicable working relationship with him at the UWI is a testimony to this. It is with this in mind that I say congratulations to this teacher of teachers on this, the occasion of his inaugural professorial lecture. And finally, from Dr. Ingrid McLaren, the immediate past head of department, I would like to convey once more my sincere congratulations to Professor Bamikole and to add that it was a pleasure working with him. I found him to be humble, kind, and compassionate, focused on his research and academic progress, while always maintaining the human touch. His sterling contribution to all areas of the philosophy section, and by extension the department, is deeply appreciated and worthy of note, as is his willingness to support and foster the development of colleagues. Ladies and gentlemen, Professor Bamikole's engagements mentioned here and more mean that Professor Bamikole has been helping to hoist and keep flying high the flag of the Department of Language, Linguistics, and Philosophy within and without the institution. So today, one day after the world marked Philosophy Day 2021, our department is justly proud to be one of the engines supporting the UNESCO's promotion of philosophy as critical in helping humankind to think through life, lived experiences, and world issues to arrive at world peace. And we are even more proud to have a colleague loaned to us by his family, country, and continent rise to the rank of professor. On behalf of every member of the Department of Language, Linguistics, and Philosophy, I congratulate Professor Bamikole on this significant accomplishment and await his public professing on value philosophy.
Thank you, Dr. Milson White. We are almost at the moment that has brought us all together. I now invite Dr. Sandra McCullough, a colleague lecturer in the department, to introduce to our esteemed speaker. Following this introduction, the Professor of Value Philosophy will be invited to the lectern to give his inaugural lecture. True to academic tradition, immediately following the lecture, the professor has graciously agreed to engage in a short question and answer period. And so please be prepared to participate in this way. Dr. McCullough.
Thank you, Dr. Griffin. Good evening, everyone. All protocols observed. I take great pleasure in introducing our distinguished Professor, Lawrence Ojo Bamikole. I know that you will all agree with me that it takes extreme patience, dedication, and hard work to reach the top of one's profession. And it takes twice as much work and determination to remain in that position. Professor Bamikole has climbed to the pinnacle and has maintained his position with pride and humility. His climb started in 1984 as a graduate assistant at the Ondo State University, now Ekiti State University in Nigeria. He rose through the ranks and became associate professor in 2008 and later served in various capacities as acting dean, Faculty of Art, 1991 to 2000, and head of the Department of Philosophy from 2009 to 2010. Now, Bamikole had a thirst to travel and gain new experiences. Thus, in 2002, his journey took him thousands of miles to the island of Jamaica, where he worked as a lecturer at the University of the West Indies in the Department of Language, Linguistics, and Philosophy. He intended to work in that position as a sabbatical replacement for 1 year, but he received an extended contract and remained in that position until 2007. And from Dr. Milson's wide speech, you know why, right? During this time, he showcased his ability to synthesize ideas, showing how philosophy is grounded in our daily activities. Although he worked and remained at UA after 2007, he made the decision to return to the University of Ekiti, but that was short-lived, and he returned to UA in December 2010, where he settled in the position of senior lecturer. He fully immersed himself in the culture and served as coordinator of the philosophy section of the Department of Language, Linguistics, and Philosophy at Mona between 2011, 2012, 2013, 2014, and 2019 to 20. During his service as section coordinator in 2011, he drove the quality assurance review for the section, which resulted in overarching recommendations which had enhanced the growth and development of the section. He also served as head of the Department of Language, Linguistics, and Philosophy between 2014 and 2017. Now, his 3-year tenure as head witnessed an enhanced cohesion in the administration of the multifaceted department. He did this by adopting the committee method of administration, in which all members of the department were given the opportunity to participate in the running of the affairs of the department. And ladies and gentlemen, prominent among his achievements as head of department is the initiating of a staff research day in 2015, in which papers were peer-reviewed and there was a special issue in the Caribbean Journal of Education, volume 38, number 2. This was published in 2016. And Professor Bamikole was promoted to the rank of professor in 2019. A leading figure in social and political philosophy and value theory, Bamikole's writings on democratic politics and value theory have established him as an outstanding scholar. His works have explored modern relevant topics, including the connections between terrorism and globalization, democracy and violence, democracy and multiculturalism, culture and development, as well as the idea of a Caribbean philosophy and its existence, for example, in a Rastafari thought system. In 2017, Professor Bamikole authored a book entitled Violence and Democratic Politics. His edited books include Introduction to Philosophy, a book of readings. This was published in 2010, and Essays in Comparative Philosophy. This was published in 2002. His published works also include numerous book chapters and peer-reviewed journal articles. And as an academic, Professor Bamikole's work is widely and significantly cited, and he is presented at numerous academic conferences. He is a member of several professional philosophical associations in Africa and the Caribbean, such as International Society for African Philosophy and Studies, Caribbean Philosophy Association, and the Nigerian Philosophical Association. Now, his distinctions and awards include Chief T.T. Salara Prize for the Best Student in BA Philosophy, University of Ife, now Obafemi Awolowo University, Ile-Ife, Nigeria, July 1983. He is a graduate of the University of Ife, now Obafemi Awolowo University, Nigeria, between 1979 and 1995, where he obtained his bachelor, master's, and doctoral degrees in philosophy. He has served on several boards as a reviewer for journals which include, but are not limited to, Journal of Applied Philosophy, Philosophia Africana, and Journal of Research in Politics. He also served as editor, Obitun Journal of Humanities from 2008 to 2010, Journal of Philosophy and Related Disciplines between 2000 and 2010. Now, as Dr. Milsom White mentioned, Professor Bamikole has a passion for conducting collaborative research with colleagues as well as research students. Dr. Milsom White mentioned a few. I will mention two here. The first was with Dr. Roxanne Burton, entitled Liberating the Jamaican Woman, Globalization and Cross-Cultural Relativism. And this resulted in a journal publication. And the second was done with Ms. Kimaha Connell on Outer and Inner Beauty, the Case of the Jamaican Woman, and this research was sponsored by the Principal's New Initiative grant. Professor Bamikole takes great pride in service to his community, and he lives by the mantra, with God, all things are possible. Ladies and gentlemen, I present to you our distinguished professor and inaugural speaker, Professor Lawrence Bamikole.
Good afternoon, everyone. I am standing on the established protocol, but nevertheless, I am going to acknowledge the presence of my good principal, Professor Weber, and also the deputy principal, Professor Ian Broxil, who happens to be my neighbor at West Road between 2005 and 2007. You're welcome, sir. I cannot be mentioning everyone by name, both virtually and physically, but I welcome everybody to this inaugural lecture. A lot has been said about me. I do not know that I am what you are calling me. But I think it is good to be good. I usually tell my friends and people that are close to me that I do not have very, very close friends, and I do not have a single enemy. Every person, as long as you are a human being, whether you are black or white, whether you are male or female, whether you are brown or black, you are my friend as long as our interest coalesces with one another. And today, I am standing before you and God to profess as a professor of value philosophy. I give adoration to God Almighty, who is the creator of heaven and earth and everything that is under it. Because Yoruba says that ọ̀pọ̀lọpọ̀ òjò ló rọ̀ tí ilẹ̀ ti fi mú, and I will translate that. A lot of rains have fallen on the ground that have been consumed by the earth. But I thank God because it's a matter of grace that I am alive. Some other people that are more brilliant, more handsome, and more everything you can call it, they are no more. But here I am today, alive and living, not only existing, but I'm also living. And therefore, I give adoration to God Almighty. And I actually thank many of you that are here who I personally know, who are able, not even minding the protocol. I know that this room occupies 41. That is what the protocol says. Okay? And people are also watching virtually. And therefore, I thank you so much for creating the time, because today is Friday. I know that Jamaicans do not joke with weekends. And now that you are here, it's because of the fact of the love and care, everything. So I welcome you so much onto this lecture. I will first of all start with dedication. And I have said about this, about God the Creator. I also want to acknowledge my father, late Chief Bamikole Abe Otokiti, who transitioned 30 years ago. My mother, Victoria Aina Bamikole, who passed on 5 years ago. My first teachers at various levels of education, Mr. Famakiwa, the primary school, Mr. Aranilewa, secondary school, Professors Akemakide and Femi Taiwo, tertiary institution, and to my wife, children and grandchild, Christiana Abimbola, Oluwafemi, Bayode, Taiwo and Kendi, and my little grandchild, Uraola. Thank you very much. Without much ado, I will start my inaugural address with the introduction. I give glory and adoration to God Almighty, my Creator, Creator of heaven and earth, and all things therein, for giving me the opportunity to stand before you to present my inaugural lecture as a professor of philosophy. When God says yes, nobody can say no. This is the second inaugural professorial lecture in philosophy at the University of the West Indies, Mona campus. The first was presented by Professor Tunde Bewaji on February 19, 2015. By the grace of God, I was the chairperson at that occasion by virtue of the fact that I was at that time the head of the Department of Language, Linguistics, and Philosophy. One good turn deserves another. The two lectures share something in common. The dates coincide with the marking of great anniversaries within the annals of Black and human history. While Professor Bewaji's lecture was presented during Black History Month, my own lecture coincides with Philosophy Month, the third Thursday of November, which was celebrated yesterday. Being a day set apart by UNESCO to celebrate the role of philosophy in the promotion of peace over the world. These occasions showcase the place of philosophy, which paradoxically has not been given pride of place among the academic disciplines, especially within the Caribbean region. My belief is that those of us who listen to Professor Bewaji's lecture and who are also going to listen to this lecture will speak to the authorities. I don't even think it's necessary. The authorities are here. Concerned with the formulation of policies for our educational curricula to have a positive attitude towards giving philosophy its rightful place in the Committee of Academic Disciplines, not only at the University of the West Indies, but also at the lower levels of educational system within the Caribbean region. The aim of my lecture today is to explicate the idea of value philosophy, the area of philosophy that has engaged my attention over 37 years. My thesis in this lecture is that value philosophy has significant roles to play within philosophy as academic discipline, within other academic disciplines outside philosophy, and with respect to the public at large. This is because it sets criteria for good behavior among human beings as they relate to one another and to non-human beings. It is also a panacea for the ills and issues of governance at local, national, regional, and international levels, exemplified in institutionalizing policies aimed at improving the human condition. However, before I profess on value philosophy, I wish to say a few things about philosophy and value generally. My principal, sir, the deputy principal, my dean, and my audience, both physically present and virtually present, on philosophy. Etymologically, the term philosophy is coined from two Greek words, philo, which means love, and sophia, which means wisdom. Thus, philosophy is the love of wisdom. However, the words love and wisdom have been used in different ways. I will quickly identify how the words are used, starting with love. Love has three basic different meanings. Love as erotic, love as filial, and love as agape. The third meaning is the philosophical sense, most related to agape love, which is, of course, devoid of its religious connotation, but it also bears some relationship with the religious connotation in the sense that the love is not attached to anything that is material or worldly. In particular, the word love is being generalized. The word wisdom also deserves some elaboration. In doing this, I will use my own native and local languages analysis and understanding of wisdom. The Yoruba, that is my ethnic group from Nigeria, both language and people of southern western Nigeria, make a distinction between imo, knowledge, and oye, wisdom. Knowledge is the experience gathered from the product of training, whether formal or informal. Wisdom is the totality of experience that comes to us either in a flash or as a product of talents endowed to us by our Creator, called Olodumare, in my culture. It can also be acquired when we apply it to experiences garnered from training. Hence, the idea of imodoye, that knowledge has become wisdom. What is called knowledge is the ability to think deeply, to grasp what is the case about the world of nature and social life. Nature and social life. My principal nature, my social life, that is the deputy principal. Knowledge about truth, epistemology. Knowledge about ultimate reality, metaphysics. Knowledge about how human beings ought to live, ethics. Knowledge about things that are beautiful, aesthetics. And of course, knowledge about organization of people into collectivities, that is politics. Imodoye, that is knowledge becoming wisdom. Then means applied knowledge. Ogbon, that is Yoruba word for wisdom, is applied knowledge. That is knowledge plus X equals to wisdom. Therefore, what is X? X signifies the totality of the beingness of the knower, exemplified in certain epistemic and character traits. Honesty, patience, kindness, tolerance, intelligence, other regarding. That is, you are not the only person in the world. You must appreciate the existence of other people, both human and non-human. A sense of justice, such as regard for fairness and equity among other people. Thus, the knower and the relationship which she shares with others is often value-laden, exemplified in ethical terms. From an academic perspective, Ojogbon, professor, is the highest status conferred on a lecturer in a university. Ojogbon is often held in high esteem, not only because of knowledge acquired, because of research and publications, but also due to the application of totality of his or her experiences in his or her profession to the physical and social places where he or she finds himself or herself. This application is made up of epistemic, ontological, ethical, aesthetic, and political values which are intended to effect positive changes in the lives of the professor, other people, society, and humanity in general. Thus, an Ojogbon or professor in any discipline, not only in philosophy, is held in high esteem, not only based on his or her academic accomplishments, but also on his or her character and how he or she applies these attributes to his or her day-to-day interactions with people in life in positive and beneficial ways. The previously mentioned idea of imodoye, that is knowledge becoming wisdom, is also captured in the concept of ifogbon tayeshe, using wisdom to mold and to change the world in a positive direction. And this concept has been developed by Akin Akiwowo in 1986 and Akin Makinde in 1988. And it literally means using wisdom to remake the world. I love one of the tracks of Jimmy Cliff in his album Follow My Mind, Remake the World. And he cited a lot of things that are wrong with the world and the need for people to readjust and to remake the world. Maybe towards the end of this lecture, I will play that tract because I have it on my phone. So, this is a principle which suggests that scholars in all academic disciplines, you and me and all persons gathered here, you call yourself an academist? It is a principle which suggests that scholars in all academic disciplines, the natural sciences, social sciences, history, theology, the humanities and other sciences in general, we must work together and use the outcome of our research to fight for the purpose of improving the world and humanity. Ifogbon Tayeshe finds support in Karl Popper's belief in the unity of the sciences. And I am saying dividing academics into faculties and departments are just for administrative convenience. All of us, whether you're a scientist, medical, or pharmaceutical, or agricultural, philosopher, theologians, we are working toward the same goal. That is making possible our research publications to advance positive changes in our community. And when I say community, I do not mean physical community. Community, local level, national level, and of course, the global level. And it is also exemplified in Richard Rorty's claim that the overarching aim of academic discipline is solidarity with our community. I like the project embarked by our deputy principal. That is the film study at Augustine. That is a good example of making what we are doing relevant to our community. That is what we are supposed to do as academics. What is to be garnered from this brief analysis is that philosophy is both a theoretical and as well as a practical discipline. The theoretical aspect involves the search for the truth. Search for the truth. The paradox is this. What somebody is searching for, it is assumed that we do not know it, isn't it? Because if we know it, there's no point searching for it. Then the paradox is that even when you come across it, because you do not know it, you won't know the time that you have come across knowledge. And that is why we are searching and researching and researching. And this process continues until when we are old, and then we pass our work to incoming generation. So, consequently, okay, the practical aspect is the application of these theoretical concerns to understanding the multiverse and the various beings which inhabit it, and use the understanding acquired to improve their well-being. Consequently, the reason the title of philosophy is the ethical. That is the centrality of value. Principal, sir, deputy principal, my dean, and my audience, both physically present and virtually present. I want to say some few things about value. In the ordinary sense, value means what has worth. As individuals and societies, we value many things. However, an essential question to ask is whether what we value is valuable. This is the beginning of the identification of the realm of value with ethics. The central question of ethics is what is valuable. There are two broad divisions of value. We have personal value and public value. Personal value corresponds to all the aspects of the human person: the physical, the cognitive, the emotional, the moral, and of course, the spiritual. Thus, we have physical values, cognitive values, emotional values, ethical values, and spiritual values. And these values are exemplified in C.B. Macpherson's notion of developmental powers. You see, this is part of my research. Ordinarily, when we say power, most people understand power in a sociological perspective, which is the ability to make people to do what you want them to do, even though when they are unwilling. But that is not the only notion of power. Here, I am using power as a developmental concept. Power that enables human beings, whether as an individual or as a collective, to realize their essence, called Eda, the purpose of their existence. That is what I mean by power here. And these are the powers that enable individuals to live a worthwhile life. And they include the following: capacity for rational understanding, which is cognitive power; capacity for moral judgment, moral power; capacity for aesthetic creation or contemplation, aesthetical power; capacity for friendship and love, emotional power; and of course, capacity for religious experience, which is spiritual. If we really want to develop a human person, we need to focus attention on the development of these powers, because it is when they work harmoniously that an individual can realize his or her worthwhile goals within a well-ordered society. On the other hand, public values are those values shared by members of a society which enable individuals along with others to pursue their life goals: security, good education, communal life, dependable physical infrastructure, such as light, water, good roads, and of course, freedom, justice, equity, and good governance. There are theoretical and practical questions about values. That values are subjective, that they belong to the realm of irrationality, so that there's no agreement as to what is right or wrong about values. And that is the problem that is being created in our world. People say that morality to the dogs, that morality is subjective. What I like is different from what you like. But look, that doesn't work that way. Because as we are all value and value-laden human beings, there are certain values that are common across cultures. And this is exactly what actually pulls human beings, no matter your race, together as the creator of our God. The slogan that illustrates value skepticism is that anything goes. Value skepticism is an outcome of the predominance of positivism over normativism. Positivism is promoted by a narrow conception of science, which sees human and non-human lives from a purely materialistic perspective, whether directly or indirectly. A narrow conception of science has been responsible for the present situation in our world, in which human beings and human lives and elements that are connected to them are no longer seen as valuable because they can easily be overridden by acts of selfish interest advanced through assassination, suicide bombings, banditry, kidnapping, white-collar corruption, and of course, gunmanism and gunwomanism. Human lives have been traded for crass materialism. Persons are being hired to kill for money, for position, for power, for love, and for other unimaginable reasons. Human beings have been used as means to ends rather than ends in themselves. The view that is being expressed here and in all my research on value philosophy is that we need to bring back value to human and non-human relations at all levels of social relationship. And principals are double principal, my dean. Many philosophers seem to view values as motivating behavior, as permitting judgments about others' behavior, and as the center of deliberations about moral questions. A value expresses an evaluative judgment directed to persons and non-persons. Values are also directed to public institutions. In other words, value has intentionality. Thus, one desires X, one values X. Values always have an object, and we express our likes and dislikes, our preferences, avowal and disavowal, our approbation and disapprobation with regard to this object. In this respect, Boseman 2007 defines value in the following way, and I quote, "A complex and broad-based assessment of an object or set of objects, where the objects may be concrete, psychologically, socially constructed, or a combination of all three, characterized by both cognitive and emotional elements, arrived at after some deliberations, and because a value is part of the individual definition of self, it is not easily changed, and it has the potential to elicit action," close quote. Three philosophical questions are often embedded in value theory. The first question is this: should values be judged in terms of intentions and outcomes? The second question: what is the relationship between intrinsic values and instrumental values? And the third question: what are the justifications for public values and collective action? The first question constitutes the debate between ethical theories that are referred to as deontology and teleology, respectively. An example of the first is Kant's categorical imperative, while utilitarianism is an instance of the second. These are the two classical and leading theories in ethics. Intrinsic values are those that are ends in themselves. Once they are achieved, they represent an end state of affairs or preferences. Thus, personal health is an intrinsic value. Instrumental values have no values in themselves, but are valued in relation to intrinsic value. For example, vaccination that is going on both in Jamaica and Nigeria and the entire world against COVID-19 is an instrumental value because we take it for benefit of improved health for the community. Public values and collective actions enable persons as individuals and as groups to jointly realize worthwhile goals under the same state or nation, and of course, under the same global arena. Principal, my deputy principal, my dean, and my audience, both physically and virtually present. I shall now turn to the branches of philosophy that specifically constitute value philosophy. The dimensions of value philosophy. Generally, axiology is the term used to refer to the branch of philosophy that deals with values. Ethics and aesthetics are components of axiology, along with their application to different areas of human relations, especially politics. This is where political philosophy enters the game. Simply put, ethics is the study of human conduct. Aesthetics is the theory of beauty. Social and political philosophy is the application of ethics and aesthetics to understanding and to evaluating social and political matters and institutions. These domains of philosophy have constituted the bulk of my scholarship in philosophy. One philosophical argument that has engaged the attention of philosophers, and of which I have made original contribution, is the connection between ethics and aesthetics, and how this connection can be deployed in understanding human relationships, especially within the political arena. I have also applied my views about this connection to engage the issues of beauty and character in relation to the Jamaican woman and Jamaican politician. In this regard, I intend to add a new vocabulary to the scholarship relating to aesthetics in the Caribbean intellectual tradition. Iwalewa to Iwalewa obìnrin Jamaica and Iwalewa to Iwalewa òṣèlú Jamaica. I will have occasion to expatiate on this later in the lecture. So I will have occasion to expatiate on this vocabulary a little later in the lecture. The connection between ethics, which is morality, and aesthetics, or beauty, has constituted a focus of debate among philosophers. This is captured within the debate between the autonomists and the heteronomists. Heteronomists hold that ethics and aesthetics are intimately and inescapably related, while autonomists deny such a relationship. Within the Western philosophical tradition, Plato, Nietzsche, Augustine, Leibniz, Kant, Martha Nussbaum are heteronomists because they have identified a close relationship between beauty and morality in different ways. In this regard, Plato suggests that the harmony and order of the beautiful symbolizes the order harmony of a just ethical soul. Nietzsche argues that the high style of the truly beautiful characterizes the highest human beings. Augustine and Leibniz hold that God's providential moral order is immediately visible in the complex, ordered host of natural and artistic beauty. In the same vein, Sontag observed that far from aesthetic and the ethical being posed apart, as Kierkegaard and Tolstoy insisted, the aesthetic is itself a quasi-moral subject. That is the heteronomists. Now, on the other hand, Koenig and Schiller were autonomists because they denied the close affinity between beauty and morality. For Koenig, one of the mistakes made in aesthetics is to believe that aesthetics and morality are logically connected. Koenig observed that it has been and perhaps still is a common view among philosophers that beauty and goodness are two species of the same genus, namely value. And therefore, there are two classes of value judgments, namely moral judgments and aesthetic judgments. For this reason, argues Koenig, there is a tendency further to suppose that there is a logical symmetry between the two. However, Koenig observes that the supposition of logical symmetry is a mistake. Koenig argues that although there are indeed certain similarities between the two, that is, between the logic of statements of the form, this is good, and the logic of the statement of the form, this is beautiful. But this must not blind us to their differences. For him, that is for Koenig, the essential difference between moral appraisal and its aesthetic counterpart is that moral appraisals presuppose uniformity, while aesthetic appraisals are not interested in uniformity. Furthermore, for Koenig, moral appraisals like legal judgment is a practical necessity, whereas aesthetic appraisal is not. Well, this is philosophical debate. So, the basic assumption that underlies Koenig's atomism is the denial of logical symmetry between ethics and aesthetics. However, it will be observed that as the literature on the debate goes, there is no philosopher who has affirmed that ethics and aesthetics are logically connected, emphasis on logically connected. For that will violate the law of identity, P and P. It could therefore be claimed that Koenig's denial of the logical connection between ethics and aesthetics is beating the man or woman of straw. The types of connection identified in the literature have been variously referred to as analogous, psychological, cultural, and symbolic. Thus, David Hume and Kant suggest that the connection between beauty and morality is psychological and symbolic, respectively, while Taiwo and Lawie aver that the connection between ethics and beauty is naturalistic or ontological. I agree with scholars who have interpreted connections between ethics and aesthetics from a symbolic, psychological, naturalistic, and existential perspectives, and I will pitch my tent with the symbolic dimension of these variations. The principle that underlies the use of symbols is based on the understanding that a thing, event, or behavior can be explained when it is believed that there are some other things and events with which it is in some way associated. That is Broadway. But association can either exhibit a lawful connection or a symbolic or cultural connection. Thus, among the Yoruba, twin children, and of course I have twins, Taiwo and Kendi, twin children are often associated with monkeys. Edun is the Yoruba word for monkeys. This belief can be expressed in the phrase, Edun ni Ibeji. Twins are monkeys. But this phrase should not be taken literally as expressing a law of identity. Rather, it should be taken as expressing a symbolic connection between Ibeji, twin children, and Edun monkeys. According to Yoruba tradition, the connection between twins and monkeys has its origin in the Ifa couples. The Ifa couples is the biblical version of Christianity, because everything about Yoruba tradition, epistemology, metaphysics, ethics, aesthetics are embedded in Ifa. And my former vice chancellor at Obafemi Awolowo University, that is Professor Bamikole, is an Ifa priest, and he's still alive. And of course, the son is also an Ifa priest, a professor at Harvard University. According to Yoruba tradition, the connection between twins and monkeys has its origin in the Ifa couples called Ejiogbe. Here, the story was told of how the monkey came to live on the tree, which accounts for its being difficult to be trapped down by hunters. According to this narrative, the monkey and Aya, a kind of animal that resembles the monkey, who were brothers, went to steal some corn. Stealing is not good, but they went to steal. I don't know the reason. Hungry or whatever, maybe due to some other reasons. As they were doing this, the farmer came around while Aya promptly climbed a tree, thereby escaping from being caught. The monkey was slow in climbing the tree, and it was caught and arrested by the farmer. The farmer later took the monkey to the meeting of the Ogboni cult, where it was discovered that the monkey was the son of Oshun, a Yoruba deity. As for this reason, the monkey was pardoned. Don't ask me whether there's justice in this. This is the narrative. Thereafter, the monkey decided to live on a tree, and this has made it difficult for it to be captured by hunters. The relevant lines of the Ejiogbe read thus: Are ló bá ẹdun nílẹ̀, ẹdun ò mọ̀ sá. Adífá fún ẹdun tí ṣe ọmọ ìyá àyá. Are bẹ́dun nílẹ̀, ẹdun ò mọ̀ sá. Are orí igi ló yẹ ẹdun. Translation. That Edun is found running on the ground is an anomaly. Edun does not run on the ground. Prophesied by Ifa Oreku to Edun, the brother of Aya, it is circumstances that make Edun to run on the ground. Edun does not normally run on the ground. Running on the ground is what is appropriate for Edun. Thus, as monkeys are difficult for hunters to trap, so are the spirits of twin children difficult to be manipulated by the enemy. This is because twin children are taken to be special children from the Orisha, as Edun is also the child of Oshun. It is when this symbolic connection, as it is contained in the Ifa corpus, is understood that the phrase Edun ni Ibeji, which looks like a statement of identity, can make sense. It is this model of reasoning that I am relying upon to seek the connection between ethics and aesthetics. I am not arguing for any logical connection, but a symbolic connection which has been supported by the relevant Ifa corpus. In relation to whether aesthetic experiences can attain a level of universality, Tampi, 1965, observed that Indian theories do not share the belief of many that aesthetic experience, for example, romantic poetry, is subjective in the sense that the poet sings about his or her personal experiences, and that classical poetry is subjective in the sense that it is about everything except the poet's own experiences. According to him, the fact is that poetry is subjective in the sense that the poet must objectify feelings in terms of images, character, actions, among others. The poet's own experiences can be the subject matter of his or her poetry. But unless he or she renders them concrete by creating appropriate correlatives, they will remain merely documents for his or autobiography. For him to objectify an experience, the poet must detach it from the subject, that is, himself or herself, and once he or she objectifies it through appropriate correlatives, the experience becomes universal. You see, look, it is not needful to be saying that, yes, I am an African, you are Caribbean, you are Spanish or whatever. We are all human beings. There are certain things that combine all of us, even though there are certain things that differentiate all of us. But for the sake of humanity, we are supposed to identify this commonality and work on it in order to actually change the human condition for the better. Tampin's view represents a typical response to subjectivity in ethics and aesthetic judgment. While this problem is real for certain Western philosophers who predominantly believe in dualism, here we are referring to Cartesian dualism by René Descartes, it is not so apparent in other philosophy, for example, Indian and African philosophy, where concepts are not seen in dualistic but in relational terms. As could be seen in Tampin's view in the last paragraph, human beings and their experiences are not always compartmentalized in such a way that they are often opposed to one another. Even when experiences are separated by time, space, and situations, if they belong to the same person, there's always a thread that binds them together to make them a unified whole. The claim made by Koenig that aesthetic is not a practical necessity cannot withstand critical scrutiny. We make aesthetic appraisals every day when we make choices. For instance, Friedrich Schiller has suggested there is a relationship between beauty and politics, and that the aesthetic state is the highest form of state where the majority of people are harmoniously and well developed. If politics is a practical matter, then if aesthetics is linked with politics, it follows that aesthetics becomes a practical matter, contrary to Koenig's position. For his part, Schiller explicitly ruled out the possibility that a work of art may convey a morally important message. According to him, the notion of a fine piece of art which teaches or improves is self-contradictory, for nothing is more at variance with the concept of beauty than the notion of giving the psyche any definite bias. Schiller's view is that the experience of art and beauty can only set the mind free to make its own moral discoveries. For him, a work of art cannot contain and communicate its own moral message. However, Schiller's claim that a work of art does not communicate an important moral message appears to be a contradiction in his philosophy. Schiller had argued earlier on that aesthetic education has an important connection with the improvement of individual lives and the proper function of the state. Clearly, these goals of aesthetic education cannot be divorced from moral goals. The improvement of human lives and the proper function of the state are ends for which individuals strive. And when there's improvement in human lives, such improvement can be extended to the state, as the state is a product of individuals and their activities, whether individually or collectively. Thus, contrary to Schiller's position, Wilkins observed that Rodin's sculpture, the keys, conveys the tenderness, care, and affection which physical and sexual relations between people both can and should possess. At the same time as experiencing the beauty of this fine and impressive work of art, one can assimilate its moral importance. Another observation made by Wilkins in connection with Schiller's denial of the relation between works of art and morality relates to his attempt to separate form from content as it relates to the work of art. According to Wilkins, Schiller made a work of art with its form as distinct from its content. But according to Wilkins, the content of a work of art can set limits to the proper appreciation and evaluation of that art. Wilkins questioned whether a painting or sculpture of rape, torture, or execution can ever be a beautiful work of art. Even when such paintings could be regarded as works of art, it stands to reason whether we can attribute the term beauty to them, no matter how admirable these works of art are. This is because the images created by these kinds of painting and sculpture represent realities that are morally reprehensible. In Yoruba scholarship, the connection of the conception of the connection between ethics and aesthetics could be broadly spelled out in Abiodun's view that the concept of Iwa is crucial to the definition of beauty in Yoruba thought. Although scholars of this subject appear to have acknowledged this fact, the dynamic relationship which exists between Iwa, character, and Ewa, beauty, has yet to be explained. In this regard, the challenge of explaining the connection between character and beauty has been responded to by Barry Hallian 2000, Bewaji 2003, Ikwenobi 2013, Tewu and Dawi 2021. My own analysis of the connection, Principal W. Professor my dean, constitutes my own original contribution to the debate and to value philosophy in general. The Yoruba phrase, which suggests an intimate cultural symbolic connection between Iwa and Ewa, is Iwalewa. J. of Odunjo, a Yoruba classicist, illustrated this connection in the following poem. And I know that Professor Akiladejo will be here. We are colleagues, those Yoruba person. You saw any Yoruba children or child that goes through the primary school will have to learn, by memory, this verse. And it says that, Tójú ìwà rẹ ọ̀rẹ́ mi, ọlá a máa ṣí lọ nílé ẹni, ẹwà a sì máa ṣalára ènìyàn. Bí olówó, bí o kò níwà, tanijẹ́ finú tọ́ bí o bá ṣohun rere. Bí o sì jẹ́ obìnrin rọ̀gbọ̀dọ̀, bí o bá jìnnà sí ìwà tí ẹ̀dá ń fẹ́, tanijẹ́ fẹ́ ọ sílé bí aya. Translation. Mind your character, my friend. Wealth can vanish from one's home. Beauty also can fade away from person. When you are becoming old, your beauty fades, no matter how beautiful you are. Okay. Beauty also can fade away from persons. If you are wealthy and you lack character, who will ever trust you if you succeed? And even if you are a well-built woman, obìnrin rọ̀gbọ̀dọ̀, beautiful woman, if your character falls below people's expectation, who will ever get married to you? We know that this is value, We know that what happens around does not actually square with this. That this is a value that people should embrace. That if certain things are happening as a matter of fact, it does not follow that they ought to happen. And this is value philosophy. The moral of this poem in the Yoruba axiological system is that Iwa, character, is preferable to Ewa, beauty, as observed by Akara Ogun, Fagunwa, 2005. This is Yoruba version. Wo mi ọ̀rẹ́ mi. Bí o kò bá tì ní ìyàwó, jọ̀wọ́ ronú kí o tó ní. Lóòótọ́ ó yẹ kí ìyàwó rẹ lẹ́wà kí ẹ má bàa tètè sú ara yín. Ṣùgbọ́n síbẹ̀, ìbáni èyí ni mọ̀. Kò sì dára kí ìyàwó rẹ má ní ọgbọ́n orí nítorí kí ẹ bá lè bára yín jọ. Ṣùgbọ́n eléyìí pàápàá kò tó nǹkan. Ohun tí ó ṣe pàtàkì jù ni pé ìwà ìyàwó rẹ kò gbọ́dọ̀ ṣàìdára. Translation. Look at me, my friend. If you have not got a wife, please think before you have one. Truly, your wife should be beautiful to preserve the affection you have for each other. But that one is of little importance. It is also good for your wife to be knowledgeable and intelligent, for you to be compatible. Yet, that also is of little importance. But over and above these qualities, your wife must possess a good character, my emphasis. Here we are suggesting that the beauty, the inner beauty of a woman is better than outer beauty. The outer beauty can fade at any time as you are growing old. People that are bleaching their skin or doing whatever, there will be a time in which everything is going to fade away. But your character, the inner beauty, will continue to shine like gold. Principal sir, my deputy principal, my dean, and my audience. To appreciate the importance of this preference of Iwa over Ewa, it is still necessary to undertake further analysis about the two Yoruba words and their connection. According to Abimbola 1975, two interpretations have been given to the word Iwa, one ontological descriptive and the other ethical evaluative. The ontological meaning is derived from inserting a vowel, I to wa, which means to be or to exist, Iwa. The ontological meaning of Iwa is the essential quality of a being, whether human or non-human. In human terms, Iwa, that is existence, which may be translated as being of human, is very essential to the human because it defines the quality of life of the individual human being. Iwa, existence, is different from living. Thus, it is believed that one might be existing without living. The Yoruba says, Ki a ma wa láyé bí aláìsí. Ṣe aláìsí means dead. No longer alive, but even when one is dead, his or her being still exists because it belongs to an ontological or metaphysical category which cannot die. The ethical meaning of Iwa relates to character traits which can be evaluated in positive or negative terms. Thus, a person with good Iwa is called Ènìyàn rere, and a person with bad Iwa is called Ènìyàn burúkú. The combination of the ontological and the ethical meaning of Iwa gives rise to the Yoruba word Ọmọlúwàbí, a term used to describe and evaluate human beings in Yoruba society. So when you are called Ọmọlúwàbí in Yoruba society, it means you must have possessed certain qualities which people expect of a human being to possess. And if you possess these qualities, then you are going to be regarded as Ènìyàn rere. But if it is the opposite, then you are Ènìyàn burúkú. And even to the extreme, people can say that, oh, kì í ṣe èèyàn, ẹranko lásán, ẹranko lásán ni ẹ́, you know, kò fi àwọ̀ ènìyàn búra ni, you are not a human being. Now, you see, one important contribution that I have also made is to try to analyze the meaning of Ọmọlúwàbí, because in the literature, when you say somebody is Ọmọlúwàbí, it is usually taken for granted that, oh, that's a good person. It is not so from my own analysis. And that's why I want to analyze it to the extent that I can bring out both the descriptive and the evaluative meaning of Ọmọlúwàbí. One, Ọmọlúwàbí can mean Ọmọ tí Olúwa bí, a child given birth to by the creator, Olúwa. That is ontological and descriptive. Ọmọ tí Olú-ìwà bí, a child who is a product of being, who is in charge of all existences. That is also ontological and descriptive. Ọmọ tí Olú-ìwà bí, a product of quaint essence or epitome of standard of character. That is evaluative. From this interpretation, the word Ọmọlúwàbí will appear to require an additional ethical term, such as goodness, rightness, justness, to give it the ethical connotation that has been bestowed upon it in Yoruba scholarship. So interpreted, the word Ọmọlúwàbí suggests that description and evaluation cannot be severed from each other. This is also a tradition in ethics that I'm trying to actually attack, that there is a distinction between fact and value. There is a distinction between is and not. And I am saying that, look, is and not, fact and value, they are connected with one another. Because whenever you describe something, there's an element of evaluation in what you describe also. And therefore, the two of them cannot be separated. So interpreted, the word Ọmọlúwàbí suggests that description and evaluation cannot be severed from each other. This is because the use of the term properly, it must be assessed in reference to a given standard. This standard can both be descriptive, ontological, or evaluative, ethical. Thus, an Ọmọlúwàbí person is the one that could be described as Ènìyàn, based on whether he or she is living and not merely existing, in accordance with certain purposes that are intrinsic to his or her Iwa or Ẹ̀dá essence. She is also a person who is good in the sense of exhibiting characteristics that are in conformity with certain ethical traits, such as patience, tolerance, selflessness, honesty, kindness, among others. Thus, it is the expectation of a Yoruba person that a woman should bear children as a means of fulfilling the purpose of motherhood. A man is also expected to provide for his family. A man or a woman is characterized as living to the extent that he or she can fulfill the roles of a husband, father, wife, and mother, respectively. What is more, if a woman or a man is performing those attributed roles well and properly, she will be characterized as a good man or woman, ọkùnrin tàbí obìnrin dáradára. A man or woman who is unable to fulfill the purposes attributed to him is considered dead, òkú, while physically alive. Principal, deputy, and my audience. Another important feature that differentiates between human and non-human is the possession of consciousness. Although it could be argued that all creatures possess some degree of consciousness. This is what can be called panpsychism. The consciousness of human is about consciousness. That is, the notion of intentionality. Non-human objects lack intentionality, whereas human beings possess ino, which can be translated as consciousness. Thus, Helen suggests that ino is a general or comprehensive term the Yoruba can use to refer to the psychological self. Psychological in the sense of the inner, private, mental, enduring conscious element of dimension to the person. Some of the mental faculties or capacities that constitute the inu are ọkàn, mind, ọgbọ́n, wisdom, ọpọlọ, intellect, ojú inú, inner eye or imagination, iye inú, insight, ìwà, character, sùúrù, patience. In epistemic terms, these mental faculties are subjectively grounded in the individual person. This is what could be referred to as first-person epistemology. One of the attributes of this first-person epistemology is that it carries conviction, whether in the epistemic or in the ethical sense. The epistemic and ethical connotations of Inu have their parallels in preachers' intuitionism as a theory of justification in ethics, which states that the attempt to give justification for our moral obligation. That is, I'm speaking, my friend will actually go along with what I'm saying. The attempt to give justification for our moral obligation rests upon a mistake. This is because we know what is right by means of a special cognitive ability called intuition. However, as Badigashi naturally suggested, Inu can also be regarded as one of the components of our body, in the sense that there are physical organs in the human body that are not immediately visible from the outside, but which can be given certain operations, such as organs like ọkàn, heart, ẹ̀dọ̀, liver, ìfun, intestine, are examples of physical organs, but which nonetheless play psychological roles. Thus, the Yoruba could say, in psychological terms, kò lọ́kàn, not courageous. Ó fojú ẹ̀dọ̀ wò, looks at women with a kind of passion, like a sexual intention. Wọ́n ti kó o ní fún lọ, he has been brainwashed. The dialectics of Ara and Inu is exemplified in the description of Alakori, never do well or good for nothing, as depicted by Akara Ogun. Fagunwa, 1950, and I am quoting it in Yoruba from that book. Alakori dàbí ọkùnrin arẹwà tí ó dára lójú ṣùgbọ́n tí inú rẹ̀ kún fún jẹ̀díjẹ̀dí àti àrùn, èérí ẹ̀dọ̀ àti èérí ìfun. Translation: a never do well person, worthless person, is like a person who looks good from the outside, but whose bowel has been infected by dysentery and worms, with dirty liver and dirty intestine. According to Lawal, the impurity within the inner domain of human existence definitely will infect the outside of the person, and as such, the person will not be described as beautiful, no matter how good looking he or she is from the outside. If somebody has a bad mind, he might be showing, kindness outwardly. But if he has a bad mind, nothing good will ever come from that mind. Because the outward character is an exemplification of the inner character. And no matter how you pretend, there will be one day in which you are going to act according to your character. This resonates with the distinction, my principal and my deputy principal and my dean, that has been made between outer ewa, outer beauty, ewa ita, ewa oju, and inner beauty, ewa inu, a distinction that is prevalent across all philosophical traditions. And I am talking here, I am not talking only from the Yoruba perspective. Indian philosophical tradition, Western, they have the replica of what I am presenting today. The only thing is that we cannot present this at a blow. So that's why I just picked this as a model of the connection between Iwa character, Ewa beauty, and how we can deploy this concept in politics. So this resonates with the distinction that is made between outer beauty, Ewa enu, Ewa ita, and Oju, and inner beauty, Ewa enu, a distinction that is prevalent across philosophical traditions. The background underlying the distinction is not unconnected with how human beings is conceived in broad terms. The human person is a combination of physical and non-physical attributes. The physical aspect is the externally visible body, made up of different parts which perform different functions. There are also physical organs in the body that are not immediately visible, but which in principle could be made visible. On the other hand, the non-physical aspects include the mental, the moral, the aesthetical, the social, and the spiritual. Beauty is reflected in all the spheres of the human person, the physical as outer beauty, and the mental, the moral, the social, and the spiritual as inner beauty. These are dimensions of beauty, but these dimensions are related to the human person, who is regarded as a being whose life is purposeful and laden with meaning. The question about the purpose and meaning of life also has implication for our conception of beauty. Just like physical objects that are designed to perform certain functions, human body parts are also designed to perform specific functions, and how these parts perform these functions will enable us to evaluate them as being beautiful or ugly. By the same token, the beauty of the human person also depends on the purpose for the existence of person in the universe as a whole or within a particular culture. Principal, deputy principal, my dean, my audience, among all traditions, the mental, inner, is often considered as having a higher status than the physical. And Sontag 2002 observed that higher beauty of any art has generally been accorded an honorary citizenship in the domain of inner as opposed to outer beauty. And according to Lawal 1974, the most important element in the Yoruba conception of human beauty is Ewa Inu, inner beauty, exemplified in human character. And Ikwe Enobi, 2016, observed that beauty as applied to humans, which involves an aesthetic judgment, is not simply judgment about physical beauty based on one's physical features, but a judgment about one's moral qualities and social abilities to behave in acceptable ways in order to meet one's social moral obligations. However, in light of the non-dualistic conception of the human person, Ikwe Enobi observes that, however, you need these two dimensions to make a robust sense of personhood, a beautiful person. Similarly, you need the two dimensions of human beauty, inner and outer, for someone to be truly beautiful as a combination of goodness and beauty. This distinction between outer and inner beauty will be relevant to my further discussions in the lecture, where I shall be using the concepts of Ewa Enu, to characterize the Jamaican woman and the Jamaican politician. The Yoruba phrase Iwalewa could further be explicated to drive home more discussions about the relationship between Iwa and Ewa. This can be done by taking account of the tonal feature of the Yoruba language. Iwalewa could be interpreted in the following ways. Iwa ni Ewa, existence is beauty, identity. Iwa ni Ewa, existence has beauty, predication. Iwa wa ninu Ewa, existence is in beauty, class membership. Iwa wa ninu Ewa, character is in beauty, class membership. Iwa ni Ewa, character is beauty, identity. Iwa ni Ewa, character has beauty, predication. What could be observed here is that the tonal character of the language combines the ontological, which is descriptive, and the ethical, which is evaluative, meanings of Iwa, to account for the Yoruba phrase Iwalewa. This suggests that the descriptive and the evaluative, though distinct, cannot be separated. In Yoruba, to say that something or person, either animal or plant, spirits, objects, means that the thing exists. But existence means different things for each kind of being. What is important is that existence is not seen in the abstract. Rather, it is linked to the certain purpose or end. This is what Aristotle called telos of that thing. It is when that thing conforms to certain ends expected of it that it can be described as dara, good, an evaluative term. However, in contrast to the Aristotelian belief that the end of all activities is that of contemplation, the things that are in conformity to their ends always manifest certain features that are considered as necessary to fulfill the end of that thing. Such features are always visible to other entities in the environment, and as such, they are considered as beautiful. The purpose, end, or purpose of things, eda, essence, is always a dynamic interaction of the thing with itself and the environment. Thus, beautiful things, things that conform to their ends, can have such ends thwarted by their own nature or by their interference from other things within the environment. A person of good character in Inyarere is a person with credible character, a trustworthy person. However, such a person can have his or her character tarnished by corrupt practices, whether of his own accord or through the influences of other persons around him or institutions to which she belongs. If your institution is corrupt, there's a tendency for you to be corrupt. If you are corrupt, you can bring your corruption to tarnish the image of the institution in which you are playing a certain role. So it is often said in Yoruba that Omo Araye kò ní ta epo sí àlà mi. May my white dress not be soiled by human beings. A person that has been corrupted by bad influence is a person that has fallen from grace to grass in relation to his or her moral personality. He or she is no longer considered as an Inyarere good person. An athlete who is stripped of his or her medal on proven act of doping, Sandra. You see, you wrote on doping for your PhD. A politician who is impeached or a proven act of criminal misconduct are instances of persons whose character and existence has been tarnished either by themselves or the influences of the environment or institution to which they belong. This point of view, my deputy principal, a researcher on agency and structure. What are the dynamics between the two? This point of view relies upon the interface and the dynamism that exists between structure and agency, or role and role concept. This is developed by McIntyre in 1989. The distinction between structure and agency, role and role concept, relates to the actions of individuals which occupy certain role, which is also an agency, within certain rule, guiding institutions in relation to role concepts and structure, and how, in turn, such institutions influence the actions of individuals. Bamikole 2017. Thus, if an institution is characterized in a certain way, for example, as efficient or corrupt, there is the likelihood that such features might have a bearing on the character of individuals that play certain roles within that institution. On the other hand, actions of individuals might also have certain effects on the working of such institutions. If an institution is corrupt, there's a possibility that it can tarnish the good image of a person that plays certain role within that institution. On the other hand, if a person is corrupt, there's also the possibility that it can give the institution in which she plays certain roles a bad image. Principal, my deputy principal, my dean, what I have done in this section is to argue for the connection between Iwa, character, in ethics, and Ewa, beauty in aesthetics. And so what I have done is to dispel the view that there's no connection between Iwa and Ewa, and that the correction is logical. I have said that any person that is arguing from that point of view is beating the strong man or the strong woman. The connection that we are asking is a symbolic, cultural, or existential connection, and that is what I have argued for in those sections. My principal, my deputy principal, dean, my HOD, my audience, the practice of value philosophy. How do we put value philosophy into practice? I have said, principal, my learned colleagues, my colleagues, and distinguished audience, my concern in this session of the lecture is to deploy the integrative elements of value philosophy to reason about one, beauty and the Jamaican woman, and two, the issues relating to governance, especially in African and Caribbean societies. And this is exemplified in the connection between Iwa, character, Iwa, existence, and Ewa, beauty. To explicate how the integrative elements of value philosophy fits into the issue of beauty among Jamaican women and the question of governance, I will borrow a schema from John Rawls, A Theory of Justice, idea of goodness as rationality as exemplified in the full theory of good. For us, in virtue of their situation in a hypothetical situation in which a sense of justice prevails, members of a well-ordered society can identify certain properties that are essential to certain roles occupied by persons. These properties are what are rational for citizens to want in one another in accordance with certain roles occupied by them. These properties are moral and non-moral virtues, and a person who has these properties to a higher degree than the average person is evaluated as a good person. Iwarere, I now want to apply that analysis to the beauty within the Jamaican women. Iwarere lewa obìnrin Jamaica. Good character is the beauty of the Jamaican woman. Earlier, I alluded to the new vocabulary of describing and evaluating the Jamaican woman. Using the Rawlsian model, it is my belief that Jamaica is a well-ordered society in which citizens can identify certain characteristics that are essential to women in the society. These characteristics are what are rational for citizens to want in Jamaican women in accordance with certain roles occupied by them. These properties are moral and non-moral virtues, and a woman who has these characteristics to a higher degree than the average woman is evaluated as a good woman. On my own model, the essence, Eda, of a woman is the beingness of that woman, and a woman is good if she manifests the essence well. It could be said that the reason for a woman's existence is a purpose of that woman. A woman is good if she manifests her purpose very well. A good Jamaican woman will then be a woman who manifests certain characteristics that are essential to her Eda essence. This essence is exemplified in certain roles that are expected of a woman in Jamaica: childbearing, mothering, caring, agents of change, and how well she performs in such roles. Such roles are not always connected with how outwardly beautiful she looks. They are exemplifications of inner beauty. Consequently, a good Jamaican woman will be a woman who is not only outwardly beautiful, lewa oju tabi ewa ita, but also possessing inner beauty, ewa inu, manifested also in such ethical traits, iwarere, such as patience, tolerance, honesty, kindness, courage, endurance, and of course, loyalty. Take this as a new vocabulary introduced to the Jamaican Caribbean axiological system. Iwarere lewa obìnrin Jamaica. My principal. I now come to the same application to the Jamaican politician. Ìwà rere lẹ́wà òṣèlú Jamaica. Good character is the beauty of the Jamaican politician. It is my belief, principal, my deputy principal, that politics has an essence, Eda. The essence of politics is the act of caring for the interests of citizens who individually and collectively constitute the state. Such interests are exemplified in the personal and public values alluded to earlier on within the election. These values are developed and enhanced by good education, which is not limited to formal education, but which also includes enlightening citizens in the way of their obligations and duties to themselves, to other people, and to the state, and to humanity in general. I also hold the view that the essence, Eda, of a political leader includes selflessness, having a vision, honesty, promise-keeping, knowledge, and of course, he or she must possess a sense of duty. A good political leader then will be someone who has to a higher degree than the average person these broadly based properties that are rational for citizens to want in a political leader. It will be noted that the attributes and characters of a good political leader are exemplification of inner beauty, ewainu. The role of a political leader then revolves around the ability and capacity to deploy ewainu, to recognize and cultivate personal and public values in the citizen by enacting policies and creating institutions which will enhance them. The suggestion here is that in many developing nations, including Nigeria, most African countries and the Caribbean countries, especially Africa and the Caribbean, political leaders exhibit outer beauty, to the detriment of inner beauty, in their act of governance. Outer beauty is manifested as expensive dresses, vehicles, and houses. They often pay attention to the development of physical infrastructures rather than human capital development. Leaders do not often keep promises made to electorates. Here in Jamaica, we say that promise is comfort to a fool. You know, that is what my students actually say. And I have written a paper on this, to suggest this kind of an unethical version. That is for another time. Leaders do not often keep promises. Okay? They rig elections. They are selfish, divisive, and corrupt, broadly speaking. This act violates the essence, of politics, and this violation is reflected in the underdevelopment of individuals, groups, and institutions who are the recipients of the political enterprise. The contribution of value philosophy, my principal, my deputy professor, my dean, to governance, especially in Africa and Caribbean, relates to the harmonious relationship between the descriptive and evaluative word, iwa, existence and character, and the aesthetic word, ewa, beauty, and how this relationship is deployed to governance, which is an act of caring for the interests of citizens by persons in the position of leadership. Political leadership is an art and process by which a group of persons, leaders, serve other persons' followers. As an art, there are certain attributes that are expected of leaders to justify their leadership. Such expectations are connected to the purpose or essence of politics. Politics is about improving the quality of human life. Political leadership, then, is about putting in place by persons or group of persons those systems that are required towards the improvement of the quality of human life. A good political leader will be a person who embodies these qualities and who has the will, sincerity, truthfulness, selflessness, which are ethical traits, iwarere, as well as aesthetical traits, ewainu, inner beauty. However, as I remarked earlier on, there are different aspects of human lives that require improvement: physical, psychological, ethical, spiritual. Human life is enhanced when there's a harmonious working of these aspects. The type of education that will require the harmonious development of these powers is the educational training that is worth giving to our young ones. what needs to be emphasized is that the elements of these aspects of human life differ from culture to culture, and the suggestion is that political leadership, to be effective in the improvement of the quality of human life, it is necessary to be familiar with the ontology, iwa, existence of the person. This, in other words, is to suggest that politics has its groundings in metaphysics. For it is when we fully understand the ontology of the person that we will be able to know what are required to satisfy his or her needs. Bamikole 2000. As earlier discussed, the notion of person comprises of an outer aspect, ara, and an inner aspect, inu. These two aspects can be classified as lewa, beautiful, depending on the extent to which the items that constitute these aspects function to enable the person to realize his or her existence, iwa. However, unlike the Cartesian view, which makes a bifurcation between the outer and inner aspects of person, an integrated notion of person sees the two aspects interlaced. This does not imply that ara cannot be distinguished from inu, but they work together in a harmonious way to produce a good person, a ninyarere. Thus, even when inner beauty is preferred to outer beauty, a situation in which both are in tandem with one another is preferred. What political leadership entails, therefore, is first, the understanding by leaders of this notion of person. You see, sometimes our leaders do not know who we are as followers. Okay? And I am saying that the first is for our leaders to know the type of person that he or she is governing and what his or her needs are. Secondly, familiarity with the kind of actions and institutions that can facilitate its realization. And third, the willingness to put these conditions in place in an equitable manner for the improvement of the quality of human life. The improvement of the quality of human life is based on some universal needs that are common to human beings, but of which culture can interpret differently. Thus, it has been held that human needs include material like food, clothing, and shelter. Psychological needs like freedom, equality, justice, and security. And of course, spiritual needs, which is the orientation towards the divine. Human life will be greatly improved when these kinds of needs are balanced with one another. And this can be done through good governance, exemplified in ethical and political virtues, such as honesty, transparency, equity, fairness, and selflessness. Principal, deputy principal, my dean, and my audience. I hold the view that political leadership is a normative project. Therefore, it is not only about winning elections, thereby having the power to direct persons along a line of action that reflects egoistic ends. Rather, it is about engaging persons in the means of fulfilling the purpose of their existence, iwa. This engagement involves the principle that persons are ends in themselves and that they should be treated as such. A situation when persons are used as mere means to ends, for instance, as political thugs, to harm opponents, to attain or cling to political position is disruptive of human ends and ends of politics. Political leaders, in the strict sense of the term, will be persons who not only possess ewara, outer beauty, but also ewainu, inner beauty, and who are willing to use these attributes for the improvement of the lives of the person they lead or govern. Awolowo, Chief Obafemi Awolowo. You see, maybe historians here must have read about Obafemi Awolowo, who was the first premier of Western region in Nigeria when we were operating a parliamentary system. He introduced free primary education. He's a Southerner. And that is why many of us, Prof, were able to go to school. And today, when we go to Nigeria, when you see the Southwest, you are going to see that they are the most educated people in Nigeria because of free education of Obafemi Awolowo. As a matter of fact, when I was trying to prepare this lecture, I wanted to base my view on Awolowo, but I was thinking maybe that will be too narrow, you know. I am also doing a paper on it. And I think I can still finish this before I go, sir. All right. So political leaders in the strict sense of the term will be person who not only possess Ewara, outer beauty, but also Ewenu. Okay, I have read that. Awolowo, and this book is called Paths to Nigeria Freedom, had a good sense of who a political leader who possesses inner beauty should be, and portrays this in his doctrine of mental magnitude. According to him, good leadership involves self-conquest. Before you can conquer others, you must first of all conquer yourself. Before you can criticize other person, you must embark on self-criticism before you can go on to criticize another person. Okay? So, according to him, good leadership involves self-conquest, and self-conquest is attainable only by cultivating as a first step the regime of mental magnitude. For Awolowo, the regime of mental magnitude is cultivated when a leader is sexually continent. You see, if, for example, we have good leadership in our society, there's no point, like sponsoring a bill against sexual harassment, because this kind of thing actually comes from leaders at different levels. Okay? But, like I said, what I am advocating is ethical conduct, value. It might be different from what actually happens as a matter of fact. But I am also advocating that, look, we must be working gradually towards this ethical standard. It is not a natural standard. It is a standard that if we have the will, we can make it. The only thing that is happening among us is this idea of crass selfishness, unbridled individualism. You want to acquire wealth, the wealth that you cannot take to anywhere when you are dead. If you're dead, you are not going to go there with your houses and all your belongings. If you have 10 houses, you cannot sleep in these 10 houses at the same time. I am telling you, your room, which is 6 feet by 4 feet, even your bed occupies the whole place. And if you want to be sleeping on almost every part of the bed, something is wrong with you. It means that you are not sleeping. It means that you are not sleeping. You cannot be rolling from one bed to the other. Talk less of having 10 of, look, it is unimaginable. And this is the kind of thing that we are arguing against. Okay? So, for our law, the idea of mental magnitude is called when a leader is sexually continent, abstemious in food, avoid gluttony, abstain totally from alcoholic beverage and tobacco. I think there's an act against tobacco in Jamaica. And completely vanquish the emotions of greed and fear. The reason for the importance of these attributes relates to Plato's belief in many of his dialogues that emotions have the tendency to blur the vision. In Jamaica, we have Vision 2030, isn't it? And if we are not careful, if we are not behaving like good leaders, our emotions, greed can blur our vision from Vision 2030. So we need to be very careful. So it has the tendency to blur the vision of the mind to reflect the forms. The forms are Platonic word for true reality, which is the domain of wisdom and all things that are excellent. In harmony with aspect theory of the person, political leadership should aim at the type of education which can produce an imodoye person. That is, knowledge becoming wisdom. The attributes of imodoye, one of the courageous 7 in Faguwa Sobojode, are evident in a person who is knowledgeable about human and non-human universes. He or she is reflective and is willing to use his or her wide experiences to bear upon new experiences in order to convert negative and disappointing experiences to positive and beneficial ones. An imodoye leader, a leader who has knowledge, and this knowledge is becoming wisdom, is a person who is not only formally educated, but who is able and willing to use his or her education to improve interpersonal, interregional, and international relationships, given the fact that humanity is one family of Homo sapiens. The model that supports the notion of Imodoye as a political leader revolves around the concept of Agba, a concept that has featured in some of my works on political leadership. Just as the concept of Omoluabi, the concept of Agba is both ontological, descriptive, and ethical evaluative. In ontological descriptive meaning relates to a certain characteristic features of a person that could be called Agba. Thus, the word Agba, usually translated an elder, may refer to certain noticeable attributes in a person, irrespective of age. It can also refer to a person of an advanced age. As an attribute, Agba suggests the quality of being reflective, honest, patient, selfless, having a sense of history. These are the essences, Eda, of Agba. These are the features which other members of society expect an Agba to have. And using Rawls' schema, a person who possesses the features more than the average person is called Agba Daradara, good Agba. As we can have in Inyarere good person and in Inyaburuku bad person, there can also be Agba Daradara good Agba and Agba Buruku bad Agba. Okay? Agba Buruku lacks all the essential qualities of Agba Daradara, and such Agba could also be referred to as Agbaya. That is so if you are a person that, even though you are old, you have experience, if you are ethically deviant, your Agba will be condemned. They are going to say Agba Buruku, Agbaya, Agba Rede, Agba Ebita. These are the kind of evaluative, put on the person of Agba. In practical terms, cases in which Agba Daradara good Agba is involved are always measured and ventilated with the standard of reason. These are the qualities of Agba: intelligence, honesty, fairness, courage, truthfulness, and equity. Intelligence here is not measured only by formal training, not book learning, obtained from schooling. It is also the ability to interpret data correctly, identify interconnections among ideas, and having the ability to arrive at correct conclusion from given premises and propositions, and the ability to apply the conclusion to solve life issues and problems. Intelligence also involves the ability to remember and recollect certain situations in the past that bear resemblance to the present and use it to predict about the future. My principal, this is how science works. And my deputy principal, both of you are scientists. Social sciences, natural sciences. But all of us are sciences in the fact that we have to reflect. And this is philosophy. We have to be critical. But not only reflecting and be critical, but we must also be ethically be found to be acting well. There are a lot of clever and brilliant people who are not doing well ethically. We cannot call them a good person, according to this model. The attributes of Agba Daradara also enables the person evaluated as such to carry out justice without fear and favor. Within indigenous and contemporary Yoruba society, a person, Agba, who possesses these good qualities is always respected, and she is considered as a good leader. Ashiwaju Rere. She will readily fit into the cognitive and ethical qualities which characterizes Imodoye, and by extension, Ifogbon Tayeshe. This concept is a concept that has been worked upon by many scholars. I am just using this here just to illustrate my point. Okay? Ifogbon Tayeshe, using wisdom to remake the world. My phone is not here. I recorded this Jimmy Cliff tract, Remake the World, in his album, Follow My Mind. Okay? I'm not sure whether we can... Oh, okay? All right, let's, because of time. Recommendations. My principal, my deputy principal, my dean, my colleagues, the audience, both physical and virtual. I now come to recommendations. The section that suggests practical ways by which philosophy, especially value philosophy, can be brought to the service of social justice. 1. My first recommendation is that our curriculum planners must have a way of introducing philosophy into our primary and secondary schools. We should catch them young at the same goals. Some of the questions that I ask is that, who is afraid of philosophy? And I think you can see where I'm going by that question. Why are we entertaining a kind of skepticism from actually introducing this critical, not only critical, self-critical, ethical value discipline into our young ones? We may not call them philosophy, not to scare away people, because when we say philosophy, people run away. We can call it, I know that when I was in primary school, we do civics, isn't it, Prof? Civics, where we are being taught about your responsibility to yourself, to other people, to your government, and that kind of thing. I am not sure whether schools are longer teaching civics now. Okay? So, my second recommendation, my principal, just a few weeks ago, and Dr. Perkins, you are a witness, one of the recommendations of this university quality assurance review of the philosophy section was that ethics should be introduced to the university curriculum as a foundation course. My dean is here, my HOD. This is part of the recommendation. I wholeheartedly support this recommendation based on my earlier arguments about the application of Ogbon to changing or remaking the world and its elements for the better. And I'm saying Jimmy Cliff's try remake the world in his album, Follow My Mind. My principal, my deputy professor, my dean, my third recommendation. I urge the university authorities to look at courses, the course offering at UWI, at the UWI, to see how departments can benefit from the philosophical and value underpinnings of their courses and programs. For example, it is recommended that philosophy of science could be made as an elective course for students in the Faculty of Science and Technology. Biomedical ethics for medical students. Philosophy of law for law students. Philosophy of language for all language and literature-based departments. Philosophy of education for education students. Philosophy of religion for our theology students. We are also affiliated, St. Michael and UTC are also affiliated with us. Value issues are fully embedded in all these disciplines. Fourth, I also recommend that parliamentarians and public officials should be made to attend refresher courses to enable them to appreciate how value philosophy can make a difference in the act of governance, to make them conform with the new vocabulary I am introducing into the Jamaican intellectual tradition, Ìwà rere lẹwà òṣèlú Jamaica. And fifth, my principal, in the foreword to Caribbean Philosophy, Caribbean Quarterly, Volume 53, Number 3, 2007, the late Vice Chancellor of the University of the West Indies, Rex Nettleford, said, and I quote, "The final article by Lawrence O. Bamikole, Creolization and the Search for Identity in Caribbean Philosophy, seeks to inform the reader on the philosophic viewpoints that guide thinking in the region. That the region has developed and is in process of understanding how its thinking informs the lives of its inhabitants, and a unique Caribbeanness is an indication that Caribbean citizens are indeed becoming unleashed from the shackles of mental slavery. For this reason, the university has seen it fit to expand the unit of philosophy into a full-fledged part of the humanities faculty," close quote. The last sentence, I am trying to draw an inference from the last sentence, and I want you to read Thus, the university will see it fit to upgrade the section of philosophy. I'm saying this loud and clear, my principal. Into a fully fledged department in the Humanities and Education faculty. This is my dream, which I hope will be realized during my lifetime, before or after I retire from the University of the West Indies. My principal, deputy principal, my dean, and my colleagues. Conclusion. I believe my scholarship has added value and substance to the discipline of philosophy in general, and specifically with regard to value philosophy. My works in value philosophy have had significant impact on the thought systems of Africa and Caribbean intellectual traditions. Within the academy, I have taught courses that have laced with value philosophy to both philosophy students and other students across the departments and faculties in the university. My scholarship has attempted to bridge the gap between knowing and doing. It is not a matter of knowing something, and what you know, you put it in your pocket, and then you continue to work as if I have known everything. What is important is that what you know, bring it out and apply it to nature, to social life in such a way that you make meaningful change for the sake of your local environment, your nation, your region, and humanity as a whole. My scholarship has helped to bridge the gap between knowing and doing, and this is because concepts that are examined and discussed in all my research publications are always tailored to how the human condition could be improved upon in society at all levels, locally, nationally, and globally. This has been done through publications in accessible journals, book chapters, and conferences. I have had the opportunity to read testimonies given by my students, both here in Jamaica and Nigeria, about how my teaching and academic activities had influenced and impacted their lives. This is the legacy which all academicians should be proud of. And to this, I am grateful to God and all persons that have contributed to the success of my scholarship. My principal, deputy principal, my dean, my HOD, my colleagues, acknowledgements. I consider this session as very important. Who am I? First and foremost, I thank God Almighty, the creator of the earth and heavens, of his grace and mercy over me. If not for his grace, we would have been consumed. The Yoruba often says that ọ̀pọ̀lọpọ̀ òjò ló ti rọ̀ tílẹ̀ ti fi mú. A lot of rains have been consumed by the earth. I owe a lot of gratitude to many persons and institutions that have shaped me and my academic career, starting from my secondary school, Ondo Boys High School, Ondo, St. John Mary's College, Owo, Obafemi Awolowo University, Ekiti State University, and the University of the West Indies, where I am professing. I, my principal, my deputy principal, specifically thank the UE for the opportunity given me and my family to benefit from its condition of service that gives opportunity for staff and their students and their family to become better persons. And I want to say today, all the members of my family, my wife, and my 4 children, and myself are UE alumni. I acknowledge with thanks my first teachers in philosophy, Professors Femi Taiwo and Aki Makinde, Professors Iwo Gbadegeshin and Oladipo Fashina, my doctorate degree supervisors, Professor J.T. Beduado, who introduced me to the works of Plato and Aristotle, Professor Barry Allen, an American who taught me African philosophy, late Professor P.O. Bodurin, my Vice Chancellor at Ondo State University, Professor Geoffrey Hunt, Shatalian, late Dr. Tunde Erumemba, Professor Godwin Tangwa, Dr. Moses Oke of blessed memory. These were my lecturers at the Obafemi Awolowo University, Ile-Ife, Nigeria. I also appreciate my first dean at the Ondo State University, Ado-Ekiti, Professor Femi Omosini, who interviewed me for the job of graduate assistant. Professor Oladapo, my first vice chancellor, and Chief J.G.O. Adebite, my first registrar. I also appreciate the collegialities of my colleagues at the University of Ado-Ekiti, now Ekiti State University, Mr. M.A. Kisi, Professors Fashoro, Olajide Adeniyi, Ogundare, Dada, Drs. Falana, Olajiga Akeju, and Mrs. Gladys Oluwadare. I owe a lot of thanks to Professor and Mrs. Bewaji. Where are they? Where are the Bewajis? These are the family through which I came to the University of the West Indies. It's a story online. Very good, man. Thank you. Your name is here. Your name is here. So I owe a lot of thanks to Professor and Mrs. Bewaji, through whom I came to the University of the West Indies and who showed me the way to navigate the academic and social spaces in the academy and the Jamaican society, respectively. I also acknowledge the collegialities of my previous and current colleagues at the philosophy section, Professor Harding, Dr. Mackenzie, Professor Rakesh Mishra of blessed memory, Anthony Wright, Dr. Gaye, Dr. Sabe, Dr. Sandra Makala, who read my citation, Dr. Omosulu, who is the present coordinator of the philosophy department, Ms. Connell, and my graduate students, Anthony. Where is Anthony? Anthony is not here. Online, okay. Damilola, where is Damilola not here? Rudolph, Janice, Avaloy, Davison, Danieli, and Stephanie. I appreciate the mentorship of my deans at the Faculty of Humanities and Education, UWI-MONA, Professor Agri Brown of blessed memory, Dr. Swinton Wilmot, Professor Waimbite Wariboko, and my current dean, Professor Coinberg, and my former HOD, whom I succeeded as HOD, Professor Sylvia Coinberg. Special mention should be made of the broadbars. Broadbars told me that they won't be able to attend physically, that they are also online, especially Dr. Mrs. Broadband, who played a stabilizing role for me and my family in a new environment. Professor Paulette Ramsey is over there, because you are my first person who hosted me during Christmas in Jamaica in 2002. Professor Devonish, my colleagues at DLLP, my current HOD, Dr. Vivette Mason-White. I would also like to thank the following: my colleagues at UWI Sister Campus, KV, Professor Frederick Odiambo, Drs. Ed Brandon, Roxanne Button, and Ms. Rachel Dujon. My academic friends, Professor Emeritus Rupert Lewis and Professor Lewis, his wife, Dr. Michael Barnett, Professor Clayton Horton. My students is 2002 at UWI, both at UWI and Ekiti State University. Late Professor Roland Sheweje, publisher of Violence and Democratic Politics. My colleagues in the Caribbean Philosophical Association, CPA, Professor Louis Gordon, Pajan Henry, and my dear friend who just passed, Charles Mears. My colleagues at various universities in Nigeria, Professors Adechina Afolanya, Oyeshile, Muyiwa Falaye, Ekaola, Arinpe Adejumo, Ebu Oduwole, Frank Ebijua, and I hope they are hearing me because they should be online. My friends and co-workers at the Departmental office, Ms. Ava Mondale, I call him Big Masquerade. Because if you want to do anything in the department, it starts from Monday and it ends with Monday. So it's a big masquerade. Yeti White, Donik Sarmo, Tika Shimiu, Tashika Dustin Staple. My immediate neighbors at Lee's Flat. Yes, okay, that's my immediate neighbor at Lee's Flat. Okay, miss. That was very good. That is Abadan Hunter Claden Sarmon, Dominic. I thank Miss Kerrian Thomas, Lachare. Where's Lachare? Okay. Christy, that is Sadrin Christy, Maleka Mackenzie. These are my very good and close students. To my parents, Chief Bamikole Abe Otokiti, and my mother, I think I should have their pictures. I'm not sure. They showed it. Okay, thank you. Victoria and Bamikole, they have passed. Especially my mother, who usually took me across the river to attend school in my primary school years and who babysitted all my children. My siblings, Mrs. Rebecca Elegbe, Victor Abigail Fenty, Beatrice Iwa, Damilola, Yinka, Oriola, Yele and Titi of blessed memories. I publicly acknowledge the editing of this content and form of this lecture by Professor Femi Taiwo and Dr. Caroline Daesh, respectively. I also appreciate the printing works done by Donik. Where is Donik? Donik Samuel has, all online, and the UWI Library. I appreciate the efforts that were put into the preparations of this execution of this inaugural lecture, and in this connection, I thank Mrs. Sophia Hayes Johnson, that's Ms. Johnson over there, the faculty's administrative officer, who spearheaded all aspects of the preparations and execution of this lecture. The MONA Information and Technology Services meets, thank you very much, for both human and technical support that ensure a successful presentation of this lecture. My principal, my deputy principal, my dean, my HOD, and my colleagues, both virtually and physically. The Yoruba often say that eye kìí fi apá kan fò. That is, birds do not fly with one wing. Whoever have seen a bird fly with one wing? That's not possible. I hereby publicly express my appreciation for the immense support given to me by my wife. It's not only my wife, she's also my friend. She is my sister. Of course, my mother has passed. She is my mother. And all in all, Christiana Abimbola, who stood by me like a rock of Gibraltar throughout my academic career. The picture has been shown? Yes. Okay. She took care of the children when I was away from home on many occasions, and she did so excellently well. And as such, we can refer to her as Obirinrere Lord Deoko, a good woman in her husband's household. My children, Femi, you have shown the picture. Femi is a student of University of Manitoba in Canada. Bayode, that is Bayode there. Bayode, wave your hand. Okay. He's also a research student as biotechnology at the Faculty of Science and Technology. Taiwo and Kende, they have left for Nigeria. Of course, both of them had their masters here before they traveled back to Nigeria. That's why I'm saying that all of them, they are alumni of UWI, including myself. The HOD said that I obtained my teaching in excellence and teaching. So I am also an alumnus. And my granddaughter, Uruala, they have shown her picture. And to my great audience, both physically and virtually present, to watch and listen to the lecture, I thank you all. God bless you. Thank you very much.
Professor, Principal, Deputy Principal, other members of UWI administration, ladies and gentlemen, we have been well fed this evening. Now, Professor Bamikole said Jamaica is a well-ordered society, and I'm sure we all perked up. And he gave as Exhibit A, the Jamaican woman, and we could all agree. And then he gave as Exhibit B, the Jamaican politician. I won't say anything more on that. Then I thought, beauty is certainly in the eye of the beholder. And I think that could sum up the engagement we have had this evening with value. We could say that beauty is in the eye of the beholder, corruption is in the eye of the beholder. But I think Professor Bamikole has really given us a rich tapestry that looks at character, ethics, beauty, aesthetics, but more importantly, is bringing African philosophy to bear on the societal material that's not so far removed from the continent. And for centuries, for decades, we have spent time using other people's philosophies to try to understand ourselves. And so we are getting closer to home. So, Prof. Bamikole, there were lots of congratulations online for you. I must read at least two of them. One was from Claudette Williams. Let me, as I grapple with the technology. So Claudette Williams said that, well, congratulations. Thanks for making the case so persuasively for the important, inextricable link between the cognitive, intellectual, the material, and the affective, ethical, and human. And then Ebunolowa said, we are indeed searching and searching for knowledge. And I think you have helped us in that search. Later on, we heard from Olusola, who said, well-researched once again. Congratulations, Professor. You have made philosophy an interesting subject. More power to your elbow. And then finally, from Ed Brandon, he says, philosophy doesn't teach values. It examines the nature of values and what you might think of as disvalues. And you have helped us in understanding that this evening. So we'll take just one question, one dege question. Dr. Perkins.
Thank you very much. You know, I'm a theologian doing similar things but from a theological perspective. And I have to ask this question because I'm not sure if I'm missing something. But for me, there is a fundamental question that your lecture is the nature of the human person, the human health. Is it as self-evident as you're presenting it?
I think this is a product of research, both in the sciences and in philosophy and some other, that a human being, physically, is made up of ara. This is the outward, your hands, your head, and everything. Over and above this, there's also the view that human beings are intentional beings, that they possess consciousness. Panpsychism says that everything is conscious. But the difference between the consciousness of all other things and human is about consciousness. And we can read this from Paul Sartre, you know, in his book, Nothingness. If you desire something. If you are fearful of something. If you love something or you love somebody. And even when you hate something or you hate something. That is consciousness with intentionality. And this is what literature portrays. And it is found across all philosophical traditions, either Western, African, Indian, Chinese, and of course, the Caribbean. The Caribbean own is a product of creolization. And you are told with this, Doc, in which people are coming from different cultures, from Africa, from India, from China, and all of them come here, not of their own volition. We know the history, you know. And because they have occupied the same physical and social space, they need to come together and form a common value. So what I have said in terms of human nature, and this is, you see, you are a Cartesian, in the sense that you are always looking for something that is intuitively certain, something that is demonstrable, like 2 and 2 equals to 4. Yeah.
That's what really my question.
Yes.
But you're not quite getting up, but perhaps on the time after.
Yes, but I'm saying that we do not need this self-intuitive knowledge before we can grasp all these features of the human person. Thank you.
Thank you, Professor. A good lecture raises all sorts of wonderful questions, and I want to echo the list of persons you've thanked in bringing you to the stage and in organizing tonight. So let me, on behalf of the Dean of our faculty, move the vote of thanks and gratefully acknowledge the various representatives of the High Commissioners, sir, especially from the High Commission of Nigeria. I'm sorry I don't have your name, but please be recognized. And Dr. Vivette Milson-White and her staff at the Department of Language, Linguistics, and Philosophy, Ms. Sophia Hales Johnson, the administrative staff, Ms. Judith Simpson-Ricketts, Faculties Management Maintenance Supervisor, and Mr. Winston Smith, MITS, all of you for gracing us. And please, in advance, the Dean has organized the reception, so please join us thereafter. Thank you for making this wonderful evening, and thank you, Professor, for that magnificent lecture. Lots to think about, lots to discuss. Please join us for reception right now. Thanks.